They have served the nation and humanity well. How about us? The summary of part of the words of the Vice President, Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman, as the government crowned that three-day national mourning for the 8 individuals who lost their lives after a military helicopter crash almost a week ago. But after the funerals have been held and the tears are wiped, critical questions still remain. How was that helicopter that took those prominent 8 individuals assessed? Who authorized it? And what was the state, perhaps, of the pilot who was handling that helicopter that crashed in that forest in Obuasi, near Kumasi in the Ashanti region? Hello, good evening, and welcome to Agenda. My name is Beatrice, and tonight, as the country continues to mourn almost a week after that helicopter crash that claimed the lives of 8 prominent Ghanaians, including the defense and environment ministers, we ask the critical questions of what could have been done to avert this. And even as investigations begin, what needs to be looked at and who needs to be held accountable for what happened. I do have on the panel with me Captain Nathaniel Kojo Anderson. He's retired Air Force pilot, also civilian captain of helicopters and board member, Ghana Civil Aviation Authority. Good evening to you, sir. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good evening.
On his extreme left, I have Dr. Yakubu Aparibo. He is aerospace medicine specialist as well as medical director, Care Flights Ghana. Doc, it's great to have you as well. Good evening.
Good evening, and thank you, Pablo.
Of course, I do have on my right side as well, Kofi Bento. He is lawyer and vice president of policy think tank, Omane Africa. Sir, it's great to have you in studio. Good evening to you.
Good evening. Glad to be here.
And I have a video call with us, Ernest Henry Nogbe. He is the Member of Parliament for Ashaiman and also a member of the Defense and Interior Committee of Parliament. Good evening to you, sir. If you can hear us, thank you so much for joining us as well.
Thank you so much, and good evening to your viewers.
Thank you very much. I want to start with you, Captain Anderson. And I mean, in the course of just the last 6 days, we've had many theories come up, many explanations as regards what might have caused this. I'm sure you've been able to piece information together, and your own expertise have been in this space for over 25 years. What's your own understanding of what could have brought us this disaster?
Okay, so once again, thank you for having me and good evening. There is an adage that says that there are old pilots and there are bold pilots, but there are no old and bold pilots. And then flying helicopters is a little bit different from flying fixed wing. And I want to use this small time to talk about what it takes for the helicopter pilot to land in a place like Obuasi, because I believe that it will help a lot in explaining what might have happened. If I'm to go to Kumasi this evening and the weather is bad, let's say visibility is low or the ceilings are low, I'll have an instrument in my cockpit, one vertical, one horizontal, and once I am about to approach to land and I have both of them lined up, if I keep both of them lined up, I can keep coming in Accra, for instance, until I'm about 200 feet before landing, look out, and if I can see the runway, I will land. That is when when visibility is not good, the ceilings are low, and I can't see anything. So the question is, if you are to go and land in Obuasi on a football field, where there is this facility that I'm talking about that exists in all the major airports in Ghana now, Takoradi has an RNAV, Tamale has both ILS and RNAV and everything, what will the pilots be looking at? And I talk about what happens if you are in your room and the light goes off immediately. Sometimes you need to close your eyes before you can actually see. If you open your eyes in the dark when the light goes off, you can't even see where the switch is. You need to close your eyes. So what might have happened? A lot of things might have happened. What I say is that what caused the accident, and nothing of what we wish or desire will cause the accident. The little that I have heard from some of social media posts and videos, especially from the minister, the Ashanti regional minister, where he was asking for debris and then parts that people have picked out. What I feel is that the debris scattered over a wide area. As an accident investigator, when I go to an accident scene and I see the debris scattered over a wide area, I suspect that this is what we call control flight into terrain, which means that the aircraft was in full motion, probably in cruise, when it finally went down. And so the parts are scattered all over the place. Now, what will cause an aircraft that is perfectly flying to fly into terrain now will come out when the investigators have picked up all the debris, all the evidence that they can gather, piece it together, and then come up with whatever it was. It could have been that the crew were incapacitated. It could have been that they were shot. It could have been that anything, their instrument gauges were momentarily not giving them the right information that they needed to be able to continue safely. So everything and anything could have been the cause. As it is right now, based on my experience flying into that particular area, I can suspect that the ceilings were low. They were probably trying to move between VFR flight and IFR flight, and then ended up CFIT. That is what I can suspect, and it will be a suspicion, and it cannot be what actually caused it.
We have had, and that's just a quick follow-up, we have had a deputy majority leader claiming that it's likely that the flight blasted before, or the craft blasted before it landed, because the parts, including the remains of the individuals on board, were scattered.
There will be a vibrant shake if you fly into terrain. And the human beings on board and the parts. Now, if you look at, I've seen the rotor blades. Some of them are almost like nothing touched it. If it blasted, there will be some fire in the air within a short period before the whole aircraft falls on the ground. If you find debris that are almost, far away, that are clean and does not have fire on it, any signs of smoke, then you cannot predict that it's blasted in the air. Because if it blasted in the air, it would have started smoking in the air, and this smoke would have found itself, especially on the blades, because the engines are such that where the smoke, the fire will be coming from, will be going around the blade. So what I have seen, I cannot conclusively say that there was fire in the air. Again, we cannot tell until the investigators are done with their job.
We cannot tell until the investigators are done with their job. And I want to come to you, Dr. Yakubu. Yeah. Based on your own experience, there are those who are asking questions about, there could have been other safety measures in there. Couldn't there have been parachutes and other things that could have saved the individuals, bearing in mind that the reports from people who saw the incident firsthand claim that the helicopter hovered around just a little bit before it crashed?
Yeah. Okay, so just a disclaimer, whatever I say is my expert opinion. It doesn't represent Careflight Ghana. Yeah. So just to add to what Captain just said about the safety situation, there's something we call situational awareness. So like Captain mentioned, you have a perfectly normal aircraft, then the pilot in control loses what we call situational awareness, and then he crashes into terrain. Now, if you see that the debris are so scattered, then you know that the impact force was high. And in aviation, we have what we call G-forces. So the aircraft moves at a certain speed. So if it impacts terrain, definitely the momentum that is going to generate is going to be high. And the human body has some G-forces limits that it can withstand. So the skull has some limit, our body parts have some limit. So once it exceeds that, then your body parts is going to be scattered. So I wouldn't say that maybe the flight was short mid-air. It's too early to determine. But I'm sure that when the preliminary report comes out, we'll get to know the probable cause. Now, back to your question. Yeah, there are some safety features that aircrafts normally have. Now, with rotary aircraft, we don't normally have a parachute on them because, the rotors are on top there. Now, what we have in fast jets is what we call ejection seats. Now, if it's a fast jet and it's going to crash, the pilot presses some knob, and then he ejects out, and then at a certain altitude, one parachute comes out. And then when, that's what we call the drogue parachute. And then when it gets to around 10,000 feet, then the pilot then deploys the bigger parachute, which then reduces the speed, and then the pilot would then land on the ground.
Doc,
safely.
Based on the explanation you're giving right now, do I get the understanding that it is possible the aircraft or the helicopter that carried the 8 individuals did not have the necessary safety equipment needed on there?
I would say it did not have. Now, there are like some features for VIP transport aircraft. So if I say safety features, one, there's what we call helicopter terrain avoidance warning systems. So when the aircraft is going to hit terrain, there's like a sensor there that generates like a 3D dimensions. And then it then automatically informs the pilot. But like Captain said, the pilot can also be incapacitated.
What I do understand, what I do understand is that the current helicopters we have, per report, none of them has that VIP. None of them is built that way with those extra features.
So I was just going to mention some of the extra features, and then we look at this current
and then
aircraft,
I'll come to
and
Mr.
then we'll
Bento.
See. So you like the terrain helicopter terrain avoidance warning system I just mentioned. I'm not sure if this aircraft had one. Then we have what we call pressurization. So most VIP aircraft, helicopters, normal helicopters are not pressurized because they fly at a lower altitude. But VIP helicopters can be pressurized. So like he mentioned, if like there are clouds that are lower, then the aircraft can fly up, to avoid the clouds, So this aircraft, I don't think had that kind of...
So we failed to protect such important people going on such a trip by not giving them the right helicopter.
So I wouldn't say, because that's what the Air Force has. So I'm sure during the discussion, we'll look at the way forward for the Air Force. But that is the current asset of Ghana's Air Force. I think we have about, we have the Z9 and then the Mi-17, which is a Russian built helicopter. These are what we have currently,
Mr. And I'll come back to you, sir. Mr. Bento, I want to get your own. I mean, you come from a policy think tank area, and I don't know what you make of the fact that it's almost 1 week already. We haven't heard any word from the Air Force, bearing in mind as well that per the military's own emergency responses, which I believe is also a standard by the Ghana Civil Aviation Authority, when a helicopter loses communication or contact with the radar, there's supposed to be that activation of what they call in CEFA, which is like the first emergency response, as it were, 30 minutes after ETA, expected time of arrival. What do you think of the culture, perhaps, that might have influenced all the circumstances surrounding what we witnessed last Wednesday?
Right. So like you said, we come from a policy think tank angle. It is important to stress that in a functioning state, people have different offices, all right? But nobody owns them. And the people who are selected, elected, appointed to these offices owe it to the rest of us to act in our best interest. And therefore, it is not subjective to what they want, what they like, and how they feel. When you bring it into aviation, this is where we come in. In Ghana, you have mostly commercial airlines, the big ones flying back and forth, going, even the local ones. And then the next, I think, will be the military, flying back and forth, that kind of thing. And then a few private, planes here and there. Now, what they do will not bother the average Ghanaian, but bothers we in the policy space. Why? Because even though we don't know what they do on a day-to-day basis, once a while, they will severely impact citizens. If somebody's doing something which will severely impact citizens at a point, it is important for the people in the system to know what is going on, what rules they are playing by, and how they are organizing themselves to at least minimize, if not eliminate, their impact on citizens. Let me give you an example. We were here in this country at a point. An aircraft shot the runway. It overshot the runway, went onto the street, hit cars, and killed people. This is how it plays. Some poor man who has never sat in an aircraft, sitting in a trotro going from A to B, trying to make ends meet, hustling to take care of their family, okay, gets knocked by an aircraft that shot a runway and kills him. The collateral effects of that, all the things that will flow out of it, and trust me, if we go back to that case, you will hear stories. My point is, questions must be asked before these things happen. Because how could that plane overshoot the runway? Was it impossible for us to create a system where if you overshoot the runway, you die, but you don't get in to affect ordinary citizens or not? And if somebody has to die between the guys in the plane and the guys on the streets, who should die? I'm talking about making policy. You make policy what we call a priori, before the fact, so that if it happens, certain things will come into play, okay? Now, some of these policies, they manifest in standard operating procedures. So, believe it or not, every aircraft that flies, whichever type of aircraft there is or they are, operates under standard operating procedures, and a lot of those operating procedures are in the area of disaster and disaster management. In other words, in a functioning state or society, when you move an aircraft, helicopter, fixed wing plane, commercial, private, whatever it is, in the event of something happening, there are preconceived, pre-thought, pre-processed, pre-tested systems and procedures that you are bound by law to follow. You who is in the aircraft, people on the ground, and the authorities involved. In this particular case, they were there, they existed. Question is, did we choose? And I'm saying choose because, you know, it shouldn't be a matter of choice. But if, for instance, this is the military, let's talk about the military. The military is not subject to civilian authority. So, for instance, Ghana Civil Aviation won't come into this one. Yeah. They have their own systems. But it should not be a matter of choice for the pilot to do what is right or not, because his work will impact civilians like you saw. So the question is, what happened to those protocols? Were they there? Were they updated? Okay. Did these people go by these protocols?
Do you suspect those questions were not answered in the affirmative?
They were not answered, but let me just make a point too. At this stage, so you see people speculating about things blasting. Note something. At Imani, we are not speculating about what happened. We are talking about processes and what should happen. Because in all aircraft investigations, anecdotal evidence or what you think you saw, okay, is usually wrong. By the time the real stuff comes out, they analyze the black boxes and the physics of it, you'll be hearing G-forces, etc. You will get a totally different story. So we are not going there at all. It is sad and unfortunate that higher-ups and people who should know better are speculating on whether there was a blast or not. The captain here has told you that, please leave that alone. Let them do that. But then what we can talk about is, what were the processes? Were they observed? What happened? And the question you asked is where I was going to. Whether or not. There are things that are matters of fact. You see them. We saw people go into that space. So we know that the area was not secured. We saw people take aircraft parts off the space. So we know that they did not do the necessary security even when they were present to stop people from doing some of those things. Okay? And I have made the point publicly, all right, that you can't tell me that within the small land space of Ghana, with the Ghana army that we have, which is in West African terms a superpower, and also respected internationally, who are trained in jungle warfare, you can't convince me that there is any space in Ghana that our Ghana army is not competent enough to reach, to take, to hold, and to secure.
So the Ghana Armed Forces failed?
I didn't say so. I said I won't be convinced. It's possible. In fact, let me tell you, some army people have been speaking to us. And some of them are saying, please, we don't have those things. But I'm telling you, from where I sit, I think it's possible. The question is,
what is possible?
It is possible for the Ghana army to take every space of Ghana, hold it and secure it. The question is, were they asked to do it? What were the protocols? Was it the politicians in charge, or the aircraft people in charge, or the army people in charge? If it was the army people in charge, was it the Air Force that was in charge? Was it the crash investigation team that was in charge? Or was it what was going on? We want to find out. Do we have the processes? Were they activated? What went wrong? The reason why that is important is because this will happen again. We've had previous calamities, we will have future calamities. The way to minimize, eliminate, or reduce the effect is to have these processes, respect them. And some of them are set in law. There are laws over these things. And then make sure that we execute them when the time comes.
I just want to get clarity briefly from you before I go to the member of the Defense and Interior Committee, and Nogbe, who is on standby for us via video call. Are you saying that at this stage you cannot tell whether it was the Ghana Armed Forces that failed to do what they had to do, or perhaps the politicians who were supposed to ensure that they coordinated things properly are perhaps the ones we should be pointing fingers at? You can't
I
tell.
can tell that it is not obvious that some strict protocols were being followed. And I can tell that because certain things that we all saw went wrong shouldn't have gone wrong if those protocols were followed. We've heard people say, oh, it was a thick forest and it was difficult to go there. And I'm saying the Ghana Armed Forces should be capable if they were asked. The question is, were they asked? So the question is, what processes, what protocols do we have when these things happen?
Mr. Nogbe, I'm coming to you right now. And like I just said, you're a member of the Defense and Interior Committee of Parliament. Was there any point where your committee had a report on the aircraft, the particular one that took Dr. Edward Omane Boamah, the Environment Minister, Dr. Murtala Mohammed, as well as the 6 others? Was there any report before you on the state of that helicopter?
Thank you very much. And once again, good evening to your viewers and good evening to the panelists at the studio. Actually, there hadn't been any report before the committee, and we've not received anything from the Ghana Armed Forces concerning that particular aircraft. The complaint we received from the Ghana Armed Forces is they are expecting the government to retool the services. And also not only the Ghana Armed Forces, but all the security services. And when we talk of retooling, we are talking of a whole lot of range of issues and technicalities and even human resource, etc., for the security services. So specifically, there have not been any mention of that particular aircraft being faulty or being changed or being serviced or otherwise. No, that has not come to the attention of the committee. The committee was very much aware that we were supposed to retool, the government was supposed to retool the security services, especially the Ghana Armed Forces, the Air Force, and then the Navy, and all other security agencies, including the immigration, the prisons, the fire service, etc. And so that is what we were trying to work on. And if you quite remember, the previous administration brought certain measures to Parliament, which we tried as much as possible to pass for them, especially the purchase of the 6 fighter aircraft from Czech Republic. The committee did due diligence. We did our work, best practices. We went to Czech Republic. Some of the members went to Czech Republic to inspect the aircraft. Unfortunately, we were not able to purchase it. They again brought the upgrading of the 37 military hospital and even the Alpha B project, that is procuring CCTV cameras for the whole cities, etc., which we approved in Parliament. But the question is as whether or not those projects came to light is another matter. So as we speak now, there have not been any mention of that particular aircraft being not in good shape or otherwise. So that is, and
please, I want you to land, sir.
Yes, and so the committee, and normally the military wouldn't come to tell you as a committee that A or B has a problem. what they want us to do, or what they would always want us to do, is to retool them, is to get them this product, is to get them this machine, is to get them this particular instrument that they may be able to use to work. They wouldn't tell you whether what is already existing had a problem or not. All we know is that we needed to retool the Ghana Armed Forces and all other security services.
I'm glad you talk about the fact that you knew that the Ghana Armed Forces needed a retooling. Having made that point, did you know how often those helicopters that obviously needed to be changed, because you're admitting that they were not in good shape, did you know how often they were serviced as a member of the Defense and Interior Committee?
Well, to the best of our knowledge, yes, they were serviced, and we were told as and when, you know, you cannot be flying an aircraft without servicing it. Even they themselves, the military, the Ghana Armed Forces or the Air Force, in fact, it's their officers who are flying those aircrafts. So there's no way they could even fly those aircrafts without servicing them. So to the best of our knowledge, yes, they were in good shape to fly. What was not in good shape to fly, which I alluded yesterday on your sister station, was those that were purchased for the police from South Africa. Those ones, a question was posed to me yesterday concerning those aircraft, whether or not they could have used those aircrafts instead of the one that was used and that had the accident. And I said those aircrafts, the 3 aircrafts, were not in good shape. They were not in good shape. There was no way they would be able to use them as we speak now. So to the best of our ability as a committee, yes, whatever aircraft they used, the Z9 that they used just recently was in a good shape. Otherwise, they wouldn't have used it.
How worried? And I'll come back to Captain Anderson very shortly. But let me ask you this: how worried were you when you had the information that the Defense Minister and the Environment Minister will be traveling using a helicopter? Of course, it's one of the 4 that was procured, I believe, in 2015, following that loan from China with the GMPC, Ghana Gas, and the rest. How worried were you that they were going to use that helicopter? Did you get any information about it, especially knowing that there was another helicopter, which we understand with the registration number 9G-AFW, which has had serious emergency issues even in the last 2 weeks, with the latest one being on Monday?
Well, actually, because we are on research, we were not as a committee, and personally, I wasn't aware that there would be any travel of that particular helicopter or aircraft, because as a committee, we normally also travel with those aircraft, these choppers and those helicopters. We went to Tamale, we were going to Boku with it, we came back, we went to Kumasi on 2 occasions with it, and we came back successfully. Yes, there are so many aircraft. I think they have about 4 or more aircraft over there, but this particular one and this particular incident, we were not aware that there would be any trouble. And if you listen to Honorable Mutaka very well, you would realize that even the Defense Minister was against the Interior Minister using a helicopter or using that particular helicopter to travel. If you listen to Honorable Mutaka very well. But unfortunately, the day he used it, because of the exigencies of the program, they had to use it. That is what happened. And so I don't think there's anything, unless we will have to wait for the investigators to come out with their results, so that we'll be able to determine exactly what might have gone wrong for the aircraft to have that particular accident and 8 people losing their lives. So let's wait until the investigation comes. We will not be able to tell exactly whether it is the fault of the pilot, whether it is the aircraft that is not in good condition, whether it is bad weather, whatever the case may be, whether it is a blast in the atmosphere or in the air, whatever the case may be. I think eventually the result may come out, and we all know.
Well, certainly, we may have to wait. As of now, like I said, the Air Force is silent. We don't even have information as to why it took the Air Force over an hour to activate per report what was supposed to have been activated in 30 minutes when the time of arrival wasn't achieved, as it were. But let me ask you this last question before I come to Captain Anderson, because I realize he wants to come in, and then I'll get the view of the rest of the panel. Would you admit that as a Defense and Interior Committee of Parliament with an oversight responsibility, perhaps you failed also at pushing for at least one good helicopter for the military, whilst you considered the overall retooling of the Ghana Armed Forces?
Listening to me, I said in my initial comment that they brought even 6 fighter jets, the purchase of 6 fighter jets from Czech Republic to the committee. We worked on it assiduously, value for money, etc. Even some committee members had to travel as far as Czech Republic.
So I'm talking about pushing to get results, not effort. Pushing to get results, Mr. Nogbe.
So you just let me make my point. They went as far as to Czech Republic to check and to inspect this aircraft. But the government of the day, for whatever reason, did not complete the procurement processes. Yes, we in the minority at that time, we can shout. The government is the spending officer. They look at the purse and purchase whatever they want for the country or do whatever for the country. As minority, we made sure that those aircraft were supposed to be bought. And that is why we supported the government of the day, even in the chamber and at the committee level. But unfortunately, it was not done. The 3 helicopters that were purchased from South Africa was done at the blind side of Parliament. That never came to the floor. That never came to the committee. We were not even aware that there was going to be a purchase of 3 helicopters because it never came to Parliament. So it was done at the blind side, and that is what they brought. If for nothing at all, if those helicopters were to be even in good shape, very good shape, probably, as everybody is alluding, we might have been using those ones as we speak now. But they are also grounded. They are at in the hangar. They cannot even move. They cannot do anything.
I'll come back to you, Dr. Nobe. Captain Anderson, I realize you wanted to come in. I'll come to Ms. Bento before I come to you, sir.
Okay, so I'll start from here. Dr. Omane Boamah was my classmate and a very good friend, primary school friend. I'm doing this for him. And for the 7 others who were on the flight. And I'll start from here. The Alpha Foxtrot Whiskey helicopter did not do a dangerous emergency landing. I'll call it a precautionary landing. You are going somewhere as a helicopter. You can't see clearly. There are hills are ahead of you. You land at the nearest football field, wait for the weather to clear, and then you continue. Then I'll talk about something that Uncle Kofi was talking about. The mandate for disaster management in Ghana is with NADMO. The military will not, no matter the capacity they have, be able to be the first responders to any crash site in Ghana. What we have to push is for our NADMO to be well equipped and well trained, so that they are not just seen as people who come in when there are floods, but people who come in when there are such disasters as well.
But there's a military aspect to it, and the military tends to. They have to be allowed in.
So what I'm saying is that the first responders, because if you are flying from here to Tamale or flying from here to Kumasi, and you come down anywhere in between, the first people that will come there, that should be able to protect lives and property, including, even though the mandate of the military and the police is lives and property. So NADMO has, we all, as a country, for policy, will have to improve the capacity of NADMO to be able to take care of some of these issues, so that when the military finally come in, after an hour or more, because mobilizing them will never take less than 30 minutes to mobilize them across the country. Then the next one that I want to talk about, because I know it has happened, military versus civil aircraft, and then the emergency locator beacons that are put on these aircraft. I will say that it is a little bit tricky for a military aircraft to have an emergency locator beacon that is seen by the civil world. And so I heard about having, would have gotten in safer from Spain and everything. On a military aircraft, it will be tricky that somebody in Spain gets to see a military aircraft that has gone down anywhere in the world. So it might not have been a feature on a fully spec military aircraft.
But there must be the military, corresponding system.
Yeah. That becomes a different story. Yes. But then when we now talk about the recovery or the announcement phase, in any case, within the armed forces system, what I know is that the trigger will be there. Within 5 minutes or 10 minutes, the trigger will be there. You and I will not be privy as to when that trigger will start. For you to think that it took an hour before they will know when it happened. But will they go on air and announce it? No. The military is not expected to do that. And I wasn't expecting the military to be the first to announce that one of the
But what about almost 1 week to time? Almost 1 week to this incident, we haven't heard anything. At least update us on, yes, we know the forensic...
Again, yes. because there are civilians on board, and I'm not speaking for the military at this point, and I'm not going to talk about what they are supposed to do and what they can't do. There is definitely a reason why they have not been able to come up with what we are expecting. Then the last one was the first question you asked, an interesting one. Don't plan to move out of a moving vehicle when you think that it's going to have an accident. And so don't jump out of a moving vehicle if you think it's going to have an accident. So nobody should think of one if you are in a helicopter. The speed at which it is moving, you cannot jump out. So parachute or anything in an aircraft, even when we're flying offshore, if an aircraft ditches in the sea, you wait for all movement to cease before you try to get out. When you're on a commercial aircraft, when they land, they tell you, wait until the captain puts off the seatbelt sign before you try to even unbuckle your seatbelt. So in an emergency,
so the argument about the parachute is around when we understand the aircraft was hovering, just around a little bit before it landed.
So the first statement that I made was, you are going to land at a place where I have landed in Obuasi, Adansi area before. You have 2 hills before the village. When you come in and you can't see the ground because it's covered by clouds, you try to, if you get a small hole, you spiral in the small hole to come down so that you can now see and then you land. That is what we go through as helicopter pilots. Yeah. Someone would think that he was struggling to land. No, he was probably trying to go through the small hole to get a proper visibility to land. And at that point, until he has put the seatbelt sign off, don't jump out.
Okay. And so I just want to add to what
Mr. Bento
said. I understand where he's coming from. So first, internationally, in the UK or in the US, when air disasters this way happens, the accident scene is considered a crime scene, and it's cordoned. And then the coroner is the one that is in charge. Either the coroner or what we call the prosecutor fiscal. They take charge of the crime scene. Now, as Captain mentioned, Ghana here, NADMO is the body that is mandated to respond in disasters like this. But NADMO doesn't have the capacity. They don't have air access. They don't have naval access. So like Bento said, when things like this happen, the Air Force is supposed to respond during the search and rescue mission. We didn't see that. We didn't see any Ghana Air Force aircraft going to help in this, the search and rescue.
I'll come back to you, Mr. Bento. Surely, please note down your thoughts.
So we didn't see that, and like I said, NADMO doesn't have that capacity. It's the Air Force that is supposed to do that. And this was even a military aircraft, so I expected that the Air Force should have deployed the other assets to go and look for the aircraft and then take charge of the
instead of allowing the residents to now have a field day and take the part of the...
contaminate this. And then I want to add just one last point before you move on. The Honorable Minister mentioned that the last time they were going to purchase the aircraft, and then they went to Czech Republic. I think that we need to change the way we do things. We need to change the way we do things because I know robust aircraft that manufacturers. The Sikorsky is one of the good aircraft. It's manufactured by Lockheed Martin. We have
Augustus,
which is now Leonardo. It's now the Leonardo company. We have this French, now Airbus also manufactures very good aircraft, you know. So these are tried and tested manufacturers. Do you get it? So if you are going to purchase aircraft, why do you go to Czech Republic?
No, okay.
I'll come back to you, sir. Let me make his
so
point,
you
yes.
go, and then the police helicopters that were purchased in South Africa, you are going to a third party to purchase those aircraft instead of going straight to the manufacturer.
So that was a wrong move?
Yeah, I think that was the wrong move. And that's why those helicopters cannot fly, because you cannot hold anyone responsible. But if you had gone to the manufacturer and they cannot fly, you go back there.
And you're still here on Agenda on TV3. My name is Beatrice. When we come back, of course, we'll look into what kind of elements we need as we investigate this matter, who should be held accountable, and indeed, really, what other things we need to do to ensure that this doesn't recur. Don't go away.
At Academic City, we are not just students. We are problem solvers, innovators, and future-ready leaders. We power the future and create groundbreaking technologies ready to tackle real-world challenges head-on. In a world driven by technology, we shape the digital landscape, transforming challenges into opportunities. At the core of strategic thinking and decision-making, we thrive in the dynamic realm of commerce. We evolve into leaders who not only speak, but stand for what's right, forging narratives and stirring the conscience of the world. Embark on a journey with us, where innovation meets education. Academic City, educating future-ready leaders.
And you're still here on Agenda on TV3. My name is Beatrice, and tonight we're, of course, looking into retooling of the Ghana Air Force and what needs to be done following that accident that claimed the lives of 8 prominent Ghanaians. And I do have on the panel with me Kofi Bento, his lawyer, Vice President Imani Africa, Ernest Nogbe, who is the Member of Parliament for Asharman, as well as member of the Defence and Interior Committee of Parliament. Of course, I do have 2 aviation experts in studio as well with me. And I'm coming straight to you, Mr. Bento. There is a question from one of our viewers on Facebook, and actually a statement saying that those who are monitoring the radar should be summoned for investigation.
Right. Many more people should be investigated as part of the investigation, not just those guys. That's 1. 2, military systems are different from civilian systems. So whoever that person is likely to be part of the military. The military has a way of dealing with them. Okay, but here is where I come in. And I started by saying military systems impact civilians and impact the nation. It is not somebody's prerogative. So the questions that should be asked, and not all of it will be answered in public, is what were the military systems at play? Were they up to scratch and were they being applied? Let me read something quickly. I'm reading from the APIM, Accident Prevention and Settlement Manual, page 6. It says, establish memorandum of understanding. The AIB, that is Accident Investigation Bureau.
Yes.
These bodies exist, though. Has established formal memoranda of understanding when necessary with the various government agencies involved in disaster response, particularly the Ghana Police, Ghana Armed Forces, Ministry of Health, Ghana National Fire Service, and the Judicial Services. All right? Somebody mentioned NADMO. I do agree with him. Again, because you see, if a military jet is flying, it will impact civilians. Civilians are not military people. When there's a disaster, I think NADMO must be first. We don't have a NADMO that is capable of that. Before
and whose fault is it?
Wait. So, before this, many years, in fact, a few weeks ago, I repeated this on my Facebook in terms of some of the proposals I want to make to the Constitutional Review Commission. I am of the considered view that we have splintered our security services, fire service, army, NADMO, border guards, police, and that is based on post-World War II thinking. And the paradigms under which those things were set up, not all of them are relevant today. Why I'm saying so is that we will never have a NADMO that is capable and equipped with men and resources of getting to that crime scene ever. And if we try to build it, it will be irresponsible for a country like us to spend money on that.
Why?
Yeah.
Why? Because how many times do you have that kind of crash? And why would you equip one unit at the expense of the army, at the expense of the police, at the expense of the fire? We have more fires than more crashes. So why would you spend only on NADMO? Which is why we came to the considered view that we should start rethinking our whole security infrastructure. And we have said, create a national defense force under one commander. There are arguments for and against. We have even come to the point to say, look, when it comes to things like Navy, okay, and some aspects of Air Force and air transport, we should have a sub-regional system under ECOMOG. No one country can police our waters in West Africa. And people are running tricks all around us because each country tries to keep a Navy, and all of them are weak and under-resourced. So it's the same principle. Why do we keep separate, splintered groups? If there's a big fire now, you know what happens? The fire service will call the police, call the army, call all those people, and they work together anyway. So in answering the question, I agree with him that there should be systems that first reach the place, hold it and secure it. We will never be able to build those systems as long as we remain a poor country. We should rethink that whole system so that we can pool the resources and get at least halfway there.
We're running out of time. Let me ask you this briefly. What would you expect in terms of the elements in the investigations moving forward?
Investigations are what, when, why, how, who. Basically, that's what it is. The point that is important to me is that Ghana actually has bodies. The AIB exists under law. There's an LI, there's an act, a law that sets it up as a body corporate. And again, this is a military situation, but we still, the Defense Committee in Parliament can ask, find out, and confirm if we have the proper updated protocols for situations like this and whether they work, and find out who did or did not do their job.
And I'll come back to you. And of course, Dr. Nogbe will get the opportunity to answer that question. But I'm coming to you now, Captain Anderson. There are questions about the military or the Air Force investigating itself. And you heard Mr. Bento there talk about the AIB, which we have in Ghana as well. Where do you stand on the Air Force investigating itself, aside from doing it for administrative purposes?
Across the world, all armed forces have their own investigators within. All accidents within are investigated within. If an external body has an interest, they can probably apply to the armed forces. Based on the existing protocols, they can be invited to be part of the investigation. During the main investigation, I know that the Air Force does rely on other sources if they need be to be part of the investigation. So the investigation will be led by the Air Force, and they will ask for other parties to be part of it if it becomes necessary. The
question is that Air Force could be covering up for itself if it is the one leading to investigate its own accident, as it were.
I expect the Air Force to continue to be as professional as they've always been, and I don't expect them to cover up anything that is untoward, because in aviation, and the Air Force is an aviation unit, we have our civil training as well as military training. We investigate accidents to prevent them from happening again. And I don't think the Air Force commander wants to have another accident on his hands. So I don't see how he will try to hide anything that is untoward. Of course, we may not like some of the things that will come out because people have already concluded on what actually happened. And so that is where we might think that they are trying to cover up, but I don't expect a cover up.
Dr. Yakubu.
Yeah. So all over the world, like Ivida said, military accidents are investigated by the military. And in Ghana, the AIB law, the law that sets us up, doesn't include the military. Military operations are different. Now, in civil accidents, why normally we want an independent body to investigate is that insurance is involved. And the insurance will not pay if you don't have an impartial, independent investigative body. So that is why normally the NTSB of the US or the AIB, normal will take over the investigations. And then I want to add about the disaster response. Now, I don't think in Ghana, NADMO can spearhead such an exercise. You see, in the US, NADMO is like FEMA. FEMA is an equivalent of NADMO. When there's an aircraft accident in the US, FEMA doesn't get involved. FEMA is involved with like natural disasters.
Yes, floods, like happened in Texas recently.
Exactly, that's what FEMA is involved in. But this kind of operation, I think we need to have like a multi-agency approach. Yeah. And not just the Air Force, but the Navy, Air Force, and the Army, police, fire service, all must come together. A combined effort. Yeah. Yeah, you cannot leave this to NADMO. There's no way NADMO can handle this.
We can't do that. Do I have a final word?
Yes, you have a final word. I want to come to you, Dr. Nogbe, because Mr. Bento asked you some questions. What should we expect from the Defense and Interior Committee of Parliament in the midst of the investigations and moving forward?
Thank you once again. Yes, before I come to that question, I want to address this matter of NADMO. The fact still remains that NADMO is the National Disaster Management Organization of this country. Every disaster that happens, you know, we have two forms of disasters, the natural disaster and then the artificial disaster, like what happens recently. Natural disasters are the relief, etc. NADMO is to coordinate the activities of all those response units, the military, etc. That is why formally we were calling them, we were calling the head of NADMO the coordinator. He has to coordinate the activity. So the NADMO is critical and important when it comes to, emergency response at this point. And that is all the more reason why in the previous administration, Dr. Kofi Portufe, who was the NADMO coordinator, was trying to buy a helicopter for NADMO. So the head office of NADMO that was built, there's a hangar built on top of that head office for helicopter, just for emergency response. You know, we passed the NADMO Act in 2016, in which 3% of the total revenue of Ghana is supposed to go to NADMO. Whether or not that is being done as we speak now is another matter. NADMO is very critical when it comes to disasters in this country. We cannot underplay the role of NADMO. Just that it's just unfortunate that we are not seeing NADMO in the light that we have to see. And that is why when Kofi Bento spoke about why do we have to spend on NADMO, how many times these things happen. That is why Ghanaians also think that, why there's no war in Ghana, nobody is fighting, the military is not fighting, why should we be spending money to buying equipment, etc. for them? But they forget, and we all forget, that they need to protect us. If there's any extremism, external extremism in this country now, the first point of call will be the immigration at the borders. It will, before it will even come to the other army or air force, etc. So
and Dr. Nogbe, if you could be wrapping up for us, forgive me.
Yes, all the security agencies, we need to do as well as we can to make sure they are capable of responding to our plight. Yes, the Defense and Interior Committee, the incident happened just last week, and I'm pretty sure that the chairman, I spoke to the chairman today, he will call emergency meeting, and then I think we'll take it up from there. At least we'll also have some advice, recommendations to make, and if the investigators come to us, okay, let me say whether or not they come to us, we need to make our input in this investigation, because going forward, we need to avert some of these occurrences.
Mr. Bento, your final words in like 30 seconds. And
we in the policy space worry about whether we as a country are serious about disaster, recovery. We had Malcolm disaster, one building collapsed. We were struggling. We had people from Israel come to help us. We had May 9th in Circle. Circle is in the center of Accra. Our security services were absent. People died, people were burnt. We had a president of the republic, the sitting president, fall into a ditch 1 kilometer from 37, 1 kilometer from the army headquarters. It was street boys who went to retrieve him. We've had this crash, and you saw people carrying away pieces. Clearly, we don't seem as a country to have any working disaster recovery system. That's our problem. That's what we need to fix.
That's our problem. That's what we need to fix. Please, you have about 15 seconds each for your final words. Yes, Captain Anderson.
So I'll use this opportunity to plead with the President. As much as the military now flies both civilians and military, we should acquire a presidential helicopter fleet, which is made of modern civil aircraft with all the safety features that will ensure the aircraft, especially the utilization monitoring, the health and utilization monitoring systems, and all the enhanced ground proximity warning systems. And the military spec helicopters that will come from Czech Republic will be purely for military operations. But to be able to pick civilians, especially including my late brother, Omane Boamah, one day, we should have enhanced helicopters. And the helicopter squadron within the Ghana Air Force needs a second eye.
15 seconds, Dr. Yakubu.
Okay, so my last words is also that Omane was my mate, my colleague. We did house job in 37. Murtala was my colleague in Commodore Hall. So I think we should use this as an opportunity to do the right thing. We need to purchase the right aircraft to do the right missions that we need to do.
We need to purchase the right aircraft. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us on Agenda tonight. Captain Nathaniel Kojo Anderson, retired Air Force pilot, civilian captain of helicopters, and board member, Ghana Civil Aviation Authority. Also, Kofi Bento, lawyer and vice president of Omane Africa. Thank you as well. Dr. Yakubu Akparibo, Aerospace medicine specialist and medical director, Care Flight Ghana. And of course, we've had with us as well the member of the Defense and Interior Committee of Parliament, Dr. Ernest Henry Nogbe. He's also the MP for Ashaiman. My name is Beatrice. Thank you so much for joining us on Agenda tonight. Join us again next week. Have a good evening.